welcome back. So, we had in the last session we discussed about the why we have to study about the firm and the consumer and the firm, and we will be now extending the one period model to the next level, and we will be trying to see that how we can define this representative consumer. So, here we assume that there is a representative consumer, and this consumer has the well defined preference, and this preference represented by what we call it as the indifference curve, and this indifference curve will show the choice between the consumption and leisure, which means that the consumption that we are saying, it is also reflecting that how much this representative consumer is earning, and leisure is the second product that this particular representative consumer will be thinking. So, this representative consumer has to make the choice that either whether he would like to have more consumption, less leisure, or less or more leisure, less consumption. So, under convex framework, downward sloping line, the indifference curve that we have. So, under convex framework we will be trying to replicate this idea. So, there is an implicit understanding in case of consumption and leisure. Consumption is directly linked to the income generating activity. So, he has to work, he will be spending some hours, and the 24 hours that this representative agent has, he or she is free to decide about how many hours he or she should be selling in the market. So, if whatever he or she decides to work for 4 hours, 5 hours, those things will be counted. Consumption when he she earns, and leisure when he she forgoes the consumption, as I mentioned above. The valuation of consumption C, that we represent the consumption by C, and leisure L are the two important variables in this model. The utility function is represented by C is the consumption, L is the leisure. So, here we have U is equal to C L, and we for the sake of simplicity we try to capture both labor and leisure into the consumption bundle of the representative consumer. So, as I told in the beginning, this consumption and leisure both are normal goods, which means that when you have the price increase, you look for alternatives, but it is not the inferior goods, which means that when you have income increasing, you will not be looking for that. So, that is not the case here, and any kind of foregoing phenomena is the common thing in case of the normal goods. So, there are some theoretical assumptions. So, here if you have read Hall-Ivarian intermediate micro, then there we talk in detail about such properties, but here we have just mentioned about the strict case, not the revealed preference that we have, warp and sharp kind of analysis that we have not done. Here it is simple that here if utility from this bundle C 1 L 1, if it is greater than utility bundle C 2 L 2, then we say that the consumer is strictly preferring bundle U C 1 L 1 over U C 2 L 2, which means that the consumer is having more likeness and he thinks that he will have more utility by consuming U C 1 L 1. Similarly, here we have U C 1 L 1 which is less than U C 2 L 2. Now, this will be the opposite case, which means that representative consumer strictly prefers bundles U 2 L 2 over C 1 L 1, and this implies that this particular bundle gives more utility. But here these two inequality conditions are not that important for me. For me, the important is that at what level of consumption and leisure which bundle makes the representative consumer indifferent. So, here we have U C 1 L 1 is equal to U C 2 L 2, and that shows that representative consumer is indifferent between these two bundles, which means that whether he would like to have this bundle U C 1 L 1 or this bundle U C 2 L 2, both the bundles are going to give the same level of utility. Second thing is the more is better. Now, once I say about more is better, now more is better is applicable because consumer would like to have more of the both goods, he would like to consume more, he would like to have more leisure, but now it given the budget constraint that this particular representative agent is going to face, he cannot have both increasing scenarios. So, but as a normal human being, this representative consumer expects that he should have more of both. Lastly, the consumption and leisure are normal goods, then only we will have the scenarios under the convex setup. And we are also not dealing so much with the complementarity and substitutions, whether the goods are substitute and complement. So, those things will of course be part of once we are assuming the normal good, but we are not dealing those cases here, special cases here. We are just trying to see that if we are deducing the macroeconomic model at the firm level, then how it looks like. So, or at the consumer level, then how does it look like. So, here we are seeing the consumption, the consumer part. Then this representative consumer has the convex well defined indifference curve, and you must be aware, those who are from eco, they know that the indifference curve is the downward sloping curve, and it has certain characteristics that if you have two bundles here which is having this characteristic that you are going to exchange with C1 minus C2 and I2 minus I1 in this setup, then it will be some kind of, either you will be consuming more of one and consuming less of two, but it cannot be that you will be moving only on this particular line, and on this line at any point you will have the same level of utility, just that you will be consuming more of one and less of another, but utility remains same on this particular line, right. So, whether you move up and down, but where it is at what level you are, and there what will be your consumption bundle, that is the only criteria that we choose. So, A and B may not be the appropriate case here, but A will certainly have the more advantage in consumption, less in leisure, but A will be higher because this representative consumer, in case of indifference curve, we always say that if the indifference curve moving rightward, this is going to give the better utility scenario. So, those things are mentioned here. Now, we will be talking about the representative consumers. We also define that this representative consumer is going to have the marginal rate of substitution, or we also work out with the slope, and slope we know that the slope of the indifference curve is nothing but the marginal rate of substitution. Since the downward sloping, so it has the minus weight because you are simply foregoing something to get something better. So, in terms of consumption and leisure that we are assuming in this model, it is represented as MRS LC L comma C, and it shows the rate of substitution between leisure and consumption goods. So, here we have the slope of the indifference curve, this particular line. The A to B that we are mentioning, so this can be called as C1 minus C2 L2 minus N1, but here we are talking about this particular slope, right. And you can easily see that here we have you can also think about how the curvature of this particular line is decided about. And if you just go by one A to point B, so here you have the rate of transformation of both these goods. At B you have less of consumption, more of leisure. At point A, here you have more of consumption, less of leisure. Then we are working out. So, from here it is clear that the representative agent is very normal case where we are not putting up any condition as such. It is just the marginal rate of substitution is not, it just the ratio of marginal utilities of these two goods L and C, but here we have to keep in mind that we are not considering any case of special cases like whether the consumption leisure are normal, whether the consumption leisure are the complementary goods or the substitutes. So, those things are not here, we are just defining in the simple way. So, this is the utility part. So, we assume the representative consumer and we define that this is how the representative consumer, when he or she has been given the choice to choose between consumption and leisure, then he will be following this route, and these are the characteristics. Now, we will have the budget constraint. Now, in this budget constraint, you have to understand that, as we have mentioned in the beginning, that representative consumer has 24 hours represented by H, labor and leisure are represented by N and L. So, L is the number of hours that this particular labor is going to supply and L is the leisure. H is the total number of hours that this particular guy is having. So, everyone is having 24 hours. Out of this particular representative agent has to think about how many hours he would like to continue. The time constraint that the consumer faces. So, here this is the with regard to the utilization of the total number of hours. It is leisure plus the number of hours that the representative consumer supplies in the market. So, here it is L plus here it is NS. Now, consumption goods acts as a numeraire here, because this is the representative price. In this prices will be expressed. So, prices are in units of consumption in real terms. So, we are talking about real wage, and then we will be also talking about how this real wage change is going to impact the consumption. Now, on top of this, so when this particular guy is going to supply NS, it means that he or she will be getting some amount of income, right. When I say he or she is getting some amount of income, wherever he or she is supplying, then that will be added income to this representative consumer. So, consumer pays a lump sum tax T to the government and receives pi units of current consumption in the form of dividend from the firm. So, here once you are born in the economy, so here we are introducing a macro variable 1. So, what is the macro variable we are introducing here? So, here we are introducing the lump sum tax T, and the another factor that we have, which is that the representative consumer is also having some extra source of income. So, apart from the NS linked wage rate, this representative consumer is also going to get some amount of dividend. And when I say that there is a lump sum tax T, so lump sum tax that in the economy when you are born, then two things are certain, one is death and another is the tax. So, every agent is supposed to pay some amount of tax to the government, and government collects that tax. So, once the government is going to collect the tax, then this will be amount T. We are not considering in terms of proportional tax, we are considering only in case of lump sum tax, which means that some fixed amount of income will be deducted as a tax by the government. And pi is represented in terms of dividends. So, dividends are always declared in the case of some amount percentage. Whatever the consumer earns, it is represented by WNS. So, wage rate is linked with the amount of labor supplied, where W is the wage per hour and N is the number of hour worked. Now, let us talk about the disposable income. So, what is the total income of the representative consumer? So, the total income is WNS plus pi. So, this is the dividend that this particular guy is getting. This is the wage rate and this is the labor supply. So, here is WNS plus pi minus here you have the T. So, this T is important because this T goes to the government. So, disposable income, you know that you have the personal income minus the tax bearing that you have. So, whatever tax incidence you have on you, you deduct from that and that becomes your disposable. So, this is the disposable. Now, if you write the consumer's budget constraint, so how does it look like? It looks like this. So, here you have a WNS plus pi minus T. So, here it is C is equal to WNS plus pi minus T. Now, till here we are clear. Now, if you substitute this, so here we had equation 1. So, here we have H is equal to L plus NS. If I solve for NS here, so what it becomes? It becomes H minus L. So, H minus L that you have, here it is C is equal to W, H minus L plus pi minus T. If you simplify this further, then what are we going to get? So, if you bring this W inside, so instead of NS, we are having H minus L, because we have assumed that H is equal to L plus NS. So, we are substituting it here. Once I substitute this here, W is equal to H minus L plus pi minus T. So, we can simplify this further, is equal to C is equal to minus WL plus WH, this we have, and pi minus T. And if you just bring this side, so what is the consumption that this particular guy is going to make? So, this particular guy is going to make is nothing but the C plus WL that this particular representative agent is having. So, here it is the consumer, the consumption of the consumer plus the leisure that he has, and that is also linked with the wage rate, right. So, wage rate multiplied by the leisure amount that this particular guy is have. So, which means that if we just solve for since we have we have brought this inside. So, if you think in terms of expenditure, how much of the wage rate this particular representative consumer will have to forego attached with the leisure, plus how much he is spending on consumption, and then this plus sign is just it is a typo here. So, here we are indirectly hinting that C plus WL it represents nothing but the implicit expenditure on goods, and here we have WH plus pi minus T, which is nothing but it is the implicit real disposable income. So, this is what we have. So, this particular guy is going to have the WH, which means that he can decide about how many hours he has to work. In the same way, he has also to decide about how many hours he should not work. Now, he is the king of his 24 hours, plus he is going to get the pi, plus he minus he is going to pay some amount of tax. So, this is how it looks like, how much he is spending and how much he is getting. So, those things are mentioned here. Now, if you try and see how does it look like, then here it is. So, if you just work out here, when I am writing C is equal to minus WL plus WHT. So, I am talking about this particular equation, the consumption. So, if I am mentioning about C is equal to minus WL plus WH plus pi minus T, what is the meaning here? On this line here you have leisure 0. So, when I am saying that leisure 0, so I have only left with this particular whole expression will be equal to 0. So, we will have C is equal to WH plus pi minus T. So, here we have WH plus pi minus T, right. Now, once I am saying that this particular from here to here, if I am moving this side, so here what will be the value? So, value will be that since this side C is equal to 0, you have to solve for L. So, if C is equal to 0, you bring this side. So, this will be L is equal to H plus pi minus T upon W. So, this is how it looks like. So, here it will be W. So, this is what we mentioned. So, this particular H plus pi minus T upon W is this. This is the budget line. The slope of this is nothing but the wage rate. So, minus WL, how much this particular guy's consumption is going to change with respect to leisure. If you are going to calculate that, then this will be only the minus W. So, this is how it works here. So, C is equal to minus WL. So, if you just draw a line, very nicely drawn line. So, here you have a no leisure. So, if the consumer is working full 24 hours, this will be his income. If you have here full leisure, no consumption, then this particular representative agent is going to get this. If he will be moving around here and here, then it is up to him that how much he forgoes the consumption and how much he has the leisure. So, that will be decided by the representative consumer. Now, we will be moving to the next part. Now, here we have what happens when the representative consumer, when the budget is, when we have the pi which is greater than T. If we have the pi greater than T, which means that this representative consumer is having higher dividend compared to tax. If this representative consumer is going to have higher dividend income compared to tax, it means that he would not like to work for more number of hours, he would reduce the number of labor supply. So, your NS will be lower. So, N superscript S that we wrote in equation 1, this is going to be lower. Now, if this is going to be lower, then you will have the kinked budget line. So, from B to D, we assume that this representative consumer would not like to work. He will start working only when he is almost like when his pi is almost equal to T, then this is the scenario where this particular representative agent would like to work and then think about consumption and leisure. In this zone, he is enjoying the pi is greater than T. So, that is why he does not have to work. So, point B to D here, this representative agent has zero labor supply, no supply at all. So that we mention about that the representative consumer that we have, this representative consumer is going to have on this line, if he moves, he doesn't work at all, he doesn't supply any amount of labor, the increase in dividend is more than sufficient for him. So maybe you can assume that, if I have to give the example, I assume that suppose you have a sudden you had invested somewhere in the market in Bitcoin or any investment in the stock market, suddenly you saw an increase in income, so my stock market did well, and then you had a good return incurring from that investment. So if you have incurred a good return, then you do not have to. So you think that now, earlier I was working 8 hours and I had very difficult time and I used to even work for 12 hours. Now I think for me 8 hours is sufficient because I have the income. So which means that the kind of adjustment that you are making, the significant adjustment that you are having, that is represented by this, that this particular guy has not also, which means that you have taken leave for 2 months, 3 months from your office and you don't care about, you left your job also because you have sufficient income now and you are thinking about some alternative plans. So this particular line speaks about those things, that when you have a sudden increase in income, then this is going to have the impact on the labor supply. So this is how it looks like. Then we work out with the consumer optimization case, that what will be the level of optimization for this representative consumer. If we have defined the representative consumer with well defined budget constraint, which has the well defined indifference curve, can we have the equilibrium level where we can say that this representative consumer is optimally better here? This we are trying to investigate now. So here we have the consumer optimization. What is that? The MRS LC, that marginal rate of substitution, is equal to real wage. So this is how it is looking like. So here we have the H. So here we have I1 and here we have F and E. So here you can think about the F point. At point F, since it is cutting down, so here you can think about the slope. The slope of this the budget constraint is greater, which means the slope of the, so MRS LC terms, if you think about, then MRS LC term, it is greater than the budget constraint, slope of the budget constraint. At point E, it is just opposite, so these two will not. At point H, it is the appropriate case because it is on the higher indifference curve and it is also tangent to the budget line. So this I1 becomes the case. So here the idea behind this is that since we have already superimposed the idea of pi is greater than t, so we will be trying to see that given this, the opportunity that this representative consumer is having, how much he is going for utilize from this. So whether he will be moving from this side or from here, he will be now deciding about. So at point H, the corresponding consumption and corresponding leisure is the consumer optimized consumption and leisure. So this is how we explore. Now in terms of optimization framework, this is how it looks like, that we will be setting up the optimization problem with the help of, you can go by the method substitution or you can go by the Lagrange multiplier. You can optimize this and get the C and L. So here it is UCL subject to C is equal to WH minus L plus pi minus T. So this is how we can introduce. So you can write it as max UCL plus lambda, here we have the budget constraint C minus WH minus L, and then you can take the first order condition with respect to C and L and find it out. So then you will easily come to know that what is the optimal level of consumption and leisure that we have. Now here we have the comparative statics that I had mentioned, that we will also have the comparative statics. So once we have worked out with the consumer optimization, so in case of consumer optimization, we saw that the point H become the natural choice for the consumer optimization. Now what happens when we have different types of comparative statics? So once I say that we have the, so here we are saying that an increase in pi minus t for the consumer. So what happens if this representative consumer is going to see the increase in the tax adjusted dividend income? If this particular guy is having a more of pi, right, then how he or she is going to change the level of consumption and leisure. Now, here if we are having at the, this is the baseline budget constraint. So, here we are having A, B, D. Now, with the increase in pi, here you can see that here you have the parallel shift in the budget line. So, budget line shifts parallelly. So, once we have the budget line shifting parallelly to this, then here you have F, J, D. The moment you are here you have F, J, D, then this shows this. So, here we have a K. Now, here when I am saying that here it is C 1 is equal to I 1. So, here we have this, we are continuously seeing that this representative consumer, after seeing this, he will have more of income effect, which means that his income increasing, which also shows that he would like to go for more of a consumption and more of a leisure. So, which means that this increase income will of course be higher from the consumption side, and it will also lead to augmentation of the leisure. So, maybe he is now having more of pi, then this will of course will have positive bearing on this, but at the same time he would also like to work for less number of hours, and this will be leading to increase in leisure also. So, this is how we are talking about. Now, here we have the increase in real wage. Now, here the increase in real wage has lot of implications. Now, once we have the increase in real wage, then increase in real wage you have to understand that here we are talking about two things. First thing is that when I say that when you have the increase in wage rate, then whether we are sure that the consumption will increase, but what will happen to leisure, whether leisure is going to increase or not. If the leisure is not going to increase, then how are we going to decide about? So, in that context it becomes critically important to understand from the perspective that, suppose for example, if I give you the example that you used to work earlier for 8 hours, now you have income increase or wage rate, or there has been promotion and then you are sudden the wage income has increased. So, whether this increase in income, the kind of income effect that you have, whether this is leading to the substitution effect also, whether you were earlier working and earning 4,000, but now your salary has increased. So, per hour your salary or per day your salary has increased. Now, you think that earlier I used to work in a month almost 28 days, but now my salary has increased and I am satisfied with that, I do not want more consumption. So, I think if I work for even 20 days, I will save the 8 days for my rest of the activities, then also I will have the same level of income and I will not compromise on my consumption. So, it is always good to go for less number of working hours. So, those conditions we are trying to superimpose here in this scenario. So, here we have the considering consumption and leisure as normal good, what happens when there is increase in wage rate. So, the original line is A, B, D, and the original budget constraint we have A, B, D. The moment we see, so the consumer is at equilibrium at F, he is asking for C 1 and L 1. Now, when we see increase in wage rate, so this shift upward. So, now the new budget constraint is E, B, D. Now, the consumer is at point H, right, but this point H that you have, you can see that the at this point H, the consumer, whatever the income effect that this particular guy is going to have, it is leading to increase in consumption, but leisure remains same. And this is partly because despite this income effect that this guy is having, there is substitution effect also playing a role. So, we now work out with this, we keep the income of the consumer same, which means that we just make sure that we do not give him enough dividend or we are not working out with further taxes. So, we are just keeping the same, so that he remains on the same original budget line that he had earlier, or original indifference curve. Now, if we try to bring him on the original indifference curve, then we draw a parallel line which will have the same slope like the newly shifted budget line. Now, you can see that now the consumer is moving from F to O. So, at point O, you will see that the consumer is having the consumption, but leisure is declining, right. So, consumption has marginally increased, but leisure is declining. Now, what we saw here at point H, that with this income effect the consumer was having good time. So, which means that he was having more of consumption, but no effect on leisure, but because of substitution effect that you have, we can see that the leisure is also getting costlier, and then here you have the impact on the consumption, though it is on positive side. So, the movement from F to A, O, that we call it as the substitution effect, from O to H we call it as the income effect. So, both these are having important role. The underlying idea is that because both substitution effect and the income effect both are having reinforcing effect on the consumption. So, consumption will simply increase, but we can see that the income effect is not impacting the leisure, but the substitution effect is impacting the leisure, which means that it will depend upon the representative consumer whether the increase in wage rate will lead to increase in leisure or decrease in leisure, but from the income effect side one thing is sure, that consumption will increase. So, overall conclusion from this is that your consumption will rise as a result of the increase in wage rate, and leisure may rise or fall depending upon the preference of the representative consumer. So, what is the learning here? Learning here is that in most of the scenarios when we think that we have the consumption and leisure framework or the income and substitution effect, if the income and substitution effect are having reinforcing effect on one particular variable, then the result become clear. If it is not, then you have the confusion over there. And in real life also it has been seen in many countries that even if you have the wage rate increase, it does not translate into more labor supply or the increase or decrease in leisure. People are rationalized and they are rational, and they decide about how many number of hours they have to supply and how many number of hours they have to use it for leisure, but the ultimate result is not very clear from this analysis. I am stopping it here. We will continue in the next session. Thank you so much.